Hello everyone! I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me once more. Today I have a fun Christmas project to share with you. We're going to be using some Photoplay paper, Say It With Stamps collection items. We have the Jolly clear stamp set. This is a 4x6 stamp set. It's a quality photopolymer. There is this lovely Jolly that you can stamp, and then you have a lot of pre-sentiments and sub-sentiments that all go with the word Jolly. So we're going to be using this as our greeting, a sub-sentiment. I'm actually not going to stamp it, but I love the font. I'm actually going to use the coordinating die. If you wanted to stamp and die cut it out, this one will do this too. This has a shadow and the word that says Jolly, so you can do either or, which is very versatile. So this is a great standalone die. We're going to be using this on our card too. And then there are some new nested die sets that you're going to fall in love with, and I think this one is just my favorite. Well, I say that all the time, but because I love the unique design of it. This could go playful, it could go elegant, it could go everyday, masculine, feminine, very versatile nesting die. This is probably going to be a staple in my craft room, but this is the nested key plate. There are 8 nested key plates from smallest to largest. The largest will, well, let me show you. The largest die I would say would be considered an A2. It will fit on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card front, but this is one of those dies that would make a great shaped card. Okay, it works perfectly for that. And then they all narrow down in size. 8 dies in total. We're going to stack these on our card today. So we'll be using the nested key plate. And then we're also going to be using the holiday wreath die set. We're not going to make a wreath for our card. I just wanted a few little holiday sprigs. So we'll be cutting some pine needles out with this holiday wreath die set today. So let's start by doing some die cutting. Today we're going to go traditional Christmas. And so I picked out some colored cardstock. For my nested key plate, we're going to be using 3 of them. So I'm going to take not the largest, but the next 3 down. We'll grab these, okay? And then I love the stitch detail on here. With the largest, I have a piece of light gray cardstock. We'll cut this out. And then the next 2 sizes, we're going to cut out with some vellum. So we're going to go vellum and vellum with these. We're going to do some stacking with this. For my Jolly, I'm going to bring in some white cardstock. I'm going to cut out my shadow with the outline with white cardstock. And then the Jolly itself, I thought we'd add a little sparkle and use some silver glitter cardstock. So we'll cut out this Jolly here. Okay, and then I do want to accent my card today with some pine needles. And so from the holiday wreath, I have this pine needle die. I love that it's one piece. I'm going to cut this out with some light green cardstock, some dark green cardstock, and then with the mid-tone green. And then with the mid-tone green, I'm going to be cutting this out with this. This is a holly berry branch, so I'll cut this out with the mid-tone. I have the wreath pieces that I didn't, you can separate these if you want. When they have that bar that connects them, sometimes I like to keep it together. This way, I have a perfect frame and I don't have to fuss with perfectly centering it because Photoplay did it for me. So using this, I'm going to cut this out with red cardstock. Okay. While we're die cutting, I do have a piece of foam. I'm going to pop up my Jolly, and rather than using some thin foam strips, I'm just going to cut out a piece of foam and we'll back that on there. So I have a little bit of die cutting to do. I'm going to run everything through my die cut machine and I will be right back. Once I have everything die cut out, we're going to start by doing a little bit of ink blending on the edges of my pine needles. I love doing this because it just adds so much. I'm just going to use a dark green ink and we're going to add a little shading to the edges. You don't really need much for this. After I have the dark green didn't show up on my dark green leaves, but I know a dark brown will show up on here. So I'm going to bring in a brown ink And I'm just going to darken some of the edges here. If you wanted to use a black ink, you could get away with this too. You just want a little darkness here. And that's all there is to this. I'm going to go ahead and clean my work surface, and we're going to do one more step with these. Now after we have this done, I'm going to bring in a watermark ink. Okay, and I'm going to bring in some white embossing powder. What we're going to do is add a little bit of embossing powder to the edges of these pine needles. I'm going to use my reverse tweezers. I actually can punch that piece out. And then I'm going to dip it in white embossing powder. So just a few of the edges have white on them. And then I'll take my heat gun and we'll melt it. So we have some white spots. So we have some snowy pine needles. It looks really pretty on the dark one that we added the brown ink to. And I like to go over the edges that I inked up. So we'll just add a little bit of our watermark ink. We'll dip it in our white embossing powder. Just give it a little tap. And if you got a little too much, you could brush a little bit away with a paintbrush. And then you take your heat gun and melt it. And look how pretty that looks. We have some snowy edges. Now I'm going to continue on with all of my pine needles, and I will be right back. Now all of my foliage has some snow-capped edges. We're going to put these to the side, and then what we're going to do is build our greeting. I'm going to take my glitter jolly, and then I'm going to place it on my red circle here. I'm just going to position it so it's semi-centered, and then using my glue, I'm going to attach it. So I have my jolly attached to the circle. Now I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to add some glue behind the jolly letters. And then I'll take my foam and we're going to layer it. Now of course, if you don't have the pop-up foam, you can use a thin strip of foam tape. I think that will work just as well. And I don't have to fuss with those small pieces. So we have some dimension here. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to layer it on my shadow. So that circle kind of looks like it's floating. And we have some dimension here. Okay, while the glue's still a little bit wet, I want to do some tucking with my pine needles. I probably won't use them all, but we'll just add some glue. And we'll tuck in some spots here. Okay, I think that's just the right amount. I do have some left over that you could put on the inside if you wanted to, but I'm going to put these to the side. I'm going to take this. I'm going to add some foam tape behind here. I do want to mention that these stems here, you can add berries to if you want, but I want a little dimension to those. So rather than adding cardstock berries, I want to use some crystal drops to add a little dimension to this. So I'll flip this over. I'm going to put some foam tape behind here, and I'm going to layer all three of these together. When I layer the vellum on here, I just put one bead of glue right down the center. And I'll do the same thing for this towards the upper portion, because we're going to add our jolly right in the middle, and I want to hide that glue. We'll just add this, tack this down, and then I'm going to take my jolly, press that down. Okay, now we'll put this to the side. I'm going to bring in an A2 panel of red cardstock. It's the same cardstock that we used for our circle. I do want to add a little bit of something to this. So I'm going to place this. Let's place it at an angle. Let's see. I'm going to place this panel on my scoreboard at the 3-inch mark and the 3-inch mark. So this corner's at 3 inches and this corner's at 3 inches. I'll take my scoring tool. I'm going to go down. We're going to make some diagonal stripes with this. And what we're going to do is go every 1/2 inch. So we have 3, 3.5. We're going to score at 4, 4.5. Okay, and then I'm going to do I have a little more room over here, but in the meantime, we're going to skip to the left side now and do the same thing. We'll score it every 1/2 mark. Okay, and then once I'm done, you can see those marks. I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing. Now I lined up the opposite corners here, so we're at the 3-inch mark once more, and 3-inch mark once more, and then I just have a couple more score lines to continue with. So we're just going to need to add a couple more here. Okay, and now if you flip it over, you can really see that embossed diagonal stripe. If you wanted to make a plaid and do the same thing once more, you could do that also. I'm going to take this panel and we're going to adhere it to the front of an A2 size card base. Now I'm going to take my panel, I'm going to flip it over, we're going to add some glue behind here, and we're going to tack this to the front of our card base. You can see just a little bit of that embossed detail in the back peeking out. If you don't like to use your scoreboard, another option would be to use any kind of embossing folder. Even a plaid embossing folder would be really pretty with this design. Okay, we'll put this to the side. I'm going to take my stamp set. We're going to stamp the pre-sentiment that says "'Tis the season to be." I'm going to stamp on some black cardstock. I'm going to bring in my watermark ink. We're going to stamp this on our black cardstock. I'm just going to dip this in my white embossing powder, give it a tap. I actually have a little bit extra here. I'm going to use my heat gun and melt this, and then I'm going to trim this down. Now I'm going to take my pre-sentiment, we're going to add it to our jolly. Since we have a bold black pre-sentiment, what I'm going to do is bring in some black and white baker's twine. I think this is just going to tie it all together. I'm going to tie a bow with this, and then I'm going to add a little glue up here at the top, and I'm going to add my bow right up to that circle there. And then for finishing touches, I'm going to bring in those, these are Nuvo Dream Drops. They have an iridescent hue to them. And then I'm going to add some dots to those berries. Looks like there's little pearls on there. And that will finish my card today for Photoplay paper. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.